In the spirit of reconciliation, the new blurt acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today.
I can't take it anymore!
Good afternoon, good evening, good day, and good morning, Blurtsters, wherever you are around the world. You are listening to the Blurt.
Yes, good evening. You absolutely are listening to the new Blurt. A little bit of a technical debacle this evening, hence why we're running a little bit late, but it's going to be a fantastic show, so hang in there, okay? Hopefully, it's got to be better than last week. Last week I was running on 4G, so it's got to be better. It's got to be better. But no, we're running on all five, six cylinders, hopefully, and maybe in the electric car, as it were, because we have Hannah Melville-Rea. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. It's a fantastic name, so it deserves to be pronounced correctly, from the Australian Institute, and she is going to have a great chat with us regarding COP26 and all things climate change. We're very honoured to have her, and she will be with us very soon on a newish segment called Green There, Done That. And Wency and I will probably just sit back in awe and listen for a while, and then when Hannah has a adjunct in her paragraph, we will ask some questions when we can actually think about what we're going to ask afterwards. She's just all the data she just spewed at us at the time. So I'm sure it will be extremely educational and very listener worthy. So if you are new, listen to the new Blurt. And saying that, we have had quite a few new listeners to the new Blurt in the last week or so. So keep subscribing, keep listening, keep downloading. We're going to have some more fantastic guests. Next year, we'll have some more people from the Australia Institute, and we'll definitely be promoting them more on our show as it comes. More on that, more on new guests. But anyway, tonight we have, as I said, Green There, Done That. Next segment after that, however long that goes for, will be Get Off the Grass ScoMo. Lots going on there in the Get Off the Grass ScoMo world. If you've never been with us before, it's basically when we have a look at the week and have a look what ScoMo's done this week. It's usually not good, but who knows? We could be surprised. I doubt it highly. But anyway, we'll see how it goes. And then the last segment is one we haven't done for a long time, but it's a cracker, and it's basically Wency's segment. And it is Listen to This. Wency reviewed an artist a while ago called Genesis Wusu, and he just won some ARIA awards. Now, I'm not right across the ARIA awards, and I'm definitely not across Genesis Wusu, but I know our learned listeners.
Uh-oh, technical glitch. Are you still there, Kegster? Oh, looks like we've lost the host of the show. This is a first for the podcast. Oh, you got me now. What am I going to talk about? Yes, I'll just continue on from where Keely was at. He was discussing about Listen to This, that segment where I review an album. And like you mentioned, we'll be talking about Genesis Owusu. But before that, we've got to kill some time while Mr. Keely joins us back on the transmission. This is what happens when you go live. Things can go wrong, and this is probably one of the worst ones. Good to see you back, Mr. Kegster. Yes, I was trying to fill in some time, and hopefully, yes. I did a decent job. You do this so well, and I'm still learning.
Oh, look, I think you did a fantabulous job there. There's no issue whatsoever. And I think for that job that you did, that I would normally give you anyway.
Yes.
I'm hoping the sound's still working, isn't it? Is the sound still coming through?
No, I think you've lost the sound bites.
All right, so you didn't hear the applause. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, it's on silent.
Oh, my goodness gracious me. Okay.
Maybe have you shared your screen yet?
Yes, I have. All right. You are going to have to run this unfortunate arc disaster.
I've got the arc up here in Brisbane with all the rain we've had. I'm still building it.
Mate, seriously. It's like a sauna down here, I'm telling you. It is
Wow.
really, really warm.
That's normally us. It's been cold here. It's only 23 degrees, I think it was.
You're getting it
there's
now.
my applause.
You're getting it now.
Yay, now I've got my
better
applause.
late
Thank
than
you.
never. Better late than never. Oh, my goodness gracious me. Well, look, we can't faff about too much because we are running a bit late and we have a fantastic guest. So I think maybe we just bring Hannah in. What do you think?
I think so. I think we're
okay, cool. So I will definitely get the thing ready for that. So here comes Green There, Done That with Hannah Melville-Rea.
Against it, but these fires are certainly climate change and just a function of life in Australia.
Why would a scientist want to change people's vote? I mean, this is you saw the spin over the past week as they drip fed.
A poll that came out last month, which found 1 in 4 Americans is skeptical of all the effects of climate change and thinks this issue's been exaggerated.
It's cold.
You're listening to Green There, Done That on the new Blurt with Wency and the Kegster.
I hope you enjoyed that, Hannah.
It's not normally how we start the show.
No, not at all. I'm hoping I have better luck on my connection.
Oh, my goodness gracious me. It's fantastic to have you on the show, Hannah. If you'd like to just introduce yourself a little bit and let our audience know exactly who they're listening to, that would be fantastic.
Absolutely. I'm Hannah. I work at the Australia Institute. I'm one of the inaugural Anne Cantor Fellows. And my research is mostly centered on climate impacts. But given that I've lived in many different places and I'm relatively new to Australia, I also focus a lot on our international engagement. And so COP26 fits right in there with all of those topics. And I'm excited to talk to you about that today.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Wency, I know, I'm pretty damn sure you've done a bit of prepping with your questions. So do you want to go first with Hannah?
Yeah, sure. One of the things that I came to a conclusion from the end of COP26, I know I was a bit disappointed, but it seems like we haven't, as a nation, come together with a solution to climate change. It seems like they're just playing delay tactics. Is that what you got out of COP26?
It's interesting you say that. I think, it's been hard to kind of have an opinion on COP26 in some ways because you see such polarizing media around it. I think there was so much expectation for this COP because it was, for one, delayed by a full year. It was supposed to be in 2020. And then like the Olympics, because of the global pandemic, that had to be shifted a full year later. And that meant that young people especially were super impatient, of course, because we are and we care so much about this topic. And there was just so much hype moving into the COP. The other big thing about this COP is that since 2015, when we had COP21, which is where the Paris Agreement was signed, this is now 5 years later, technically 6, but in the process terms, 5 years later. So all countries were invited to resubmit their updated targets, so their 2030 targets. And that was a really, really big moment because it meant that we had all of this new information and trajectories to think about, how are we going to get to 1.5 degree future and at least, the very least, as the Paris Agreement says, below 2 degrees. On top of that, we had the IPCC report, the world's leading scientists saying that we are on course for catastrophe, basically. And I think so that just meant that there was so much expectation placed on this one event. But as far as COPs go, I would say that COP26 was a qualified success. This is a process where
I hate to see a failure.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, this conference, right, we're doing a consensus-based negotiation. So one country can literally block anything. And when you're getting 200 countries together and trying to come up with an agreement, when you have countries that are, oil rich or coal rich, that's a difficult thing to do. So what's exciting about COP26 is that for the first time since 1997, which was when we had the Kyoto Protocol, we now actually have reference specifically to fossil fuels. That does not happen very often at all, but we now have language in there saying that we need a phase down of coal. That sends a very, very clear signal to countries like Australia, and I think draws a line in the sand that fossil fuels are really part of the problem, and phasing that down is going to be now a global priority. Yeah, we can get more into it, but there's also been lots of deals struck at COP26, which I think are exciting, and definitely we shouldn't underestimate the power of those.
Okay, would you like to extrapolate on some of those deals? More than happy to talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so to start with, let's talk about coal. We had the Coal to Clean Power statement, which was signed by 75 signatories, including 45 countries at COP26.
Surely that wasn't us.
No.
No.
I wish I could say yes, but as you know, we're in the top two largest exporters of coal, and Australia was not there to sign any of these pledges that I'm about to tell you about, unfortunately. But the other big one, of course, was on methane. So President Biden led the charge on this, and it was the global methane pledge is all about reducing methane emissions by 30% in the next decade, right? And I think that's exciting because unlike carbon dioxide, methane is even more potent in the short term. So if you want to get that bang for your buck, that's a really good thing to target and reduce.
And what industries use methane at the moment that consume all that?
Yeah, so methane comes from agriculture, but also from the gas industry. So
I was going to say fracking leaks methane, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So when we talk about, gas-fired recovery in Australia, that's a methane-fired recovery.
Oh, yeah!
Yeah. and also, our methane emissions from agriculture, it's actually decreasing versus our methane emissions from the fossil fuel industry and the production of electricity through that. That's all increasing. So the reason why my assessment is that the reason why Australia is not signing on to these pledges is not so much about, the need to kill the cows, as some people in the government.
As Barnaby likes to say, yeah, because obviously let's take it to the extreme. Don't be moderate with your comments at all.
Yeah.
It's much more about this gas industry that's just entrenched itself in the way that we run our politics.
The other thing I was going to ask you, Hannah, is that they always talk about meeting and beating, and really it does my absolute scone in, because I know for a fact that our target was 8% over 100% of our emissions. So meeting and beating is not that hard when your target's so completely crap. So I'm just wondering, we're in a situation that, it has to be net zero by 2050. And as you say, we're talking about 2030 targets. Yeah. Do you have any hope at all with this particular government that we have that, just say, for instance, the worst happened, my opinion, and they get in again. Do you think that anything that they've tried to put together to have anything to do with greenhouse gas reduction and methane reduction, etc., it's going to make any difference at all? Are we just in completely deep doo-doo, as it were?
Well, Well, I'm inherently an optimist. I think.
Oh, good. That's good. We need some of those, especially when you're
to
young.
counteract our fears.
Our realism or pessimism. It depends how you want to look at it.
So, I always think it's still worth it to put pressure on the current government. And I think there is immense pressure now at COP26. One of the outcomes of that was that all countries who haven't updated their 2030 target, i.e. Australia, is requested to come back next year to COP27, which will be held in Egypt, with an updated and improved target. Right. So every time that the government now says we're not updating that plan, and they did come back directly from COP26 and say that it's not happening, we're not doing it.
That's
but
right.
that I mean, it's been requested now by the global community, and it looks really bad not to adhere to, your strongest allies, what they're saying. I think
there's no punitive damages, though. There's no financial loss for the country. I mean, it's basically like saying, look, little Johnny, I'm sorry, that's just not good enough. Come back next year with a much better target. And they say, yes, okay, I'll do that, no problems. And then go home and say to mum, I don't give a stuff what they say. I'm just going to do whatever I like.
Yeah.
Yes and no, though, because Australia is such an exporter of fossil fuels, right? The exporting of fossil fuels is bigger than our domestic emissions. And the more that you have other countries setting these precedents, we are now, for example, Japan, they burn more of Australia's coal than Australia burns of our oil,
I didn't know that.
right? So Japan saying we are going to take climate change seriously means that where are we going to export this to? Right. And more and more now the European Union looks like it's introducing a carbon border adjustment mechanism, which is all about putting a tariff on countries that don't have carbon pricing domestically. So there are more and more penalties for not following suit and not contributing that Australia is going to be facing. And it's just kind of ridiculous, too, because there's such an opportunity here to transition, and I think that is already happening at the subnational level in Australia, even with the Liberal National Coalition state governments. New South Wales is doing great.
Yes.
And more, that's where we're seeing the leadership happening. So I think, for one, we have an election coming up, so we'll see, but also we have different levels of government, and now the international community and our trade partners all really putting pressure on the federal government. And I think as the Australia Institute, we will also not let up on making sure that we're putting that pressure to have better climate policies.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head where you said leadership. There's leadership within the states, some of the states, but we're not seeing it federally. And I think, in my opinion, the federal government is going to be kicking and screaming to get to the places where we need to be. And I think indirectly, if the federal government continues the way they are, we'll get a carbon tax indirectly, because, like you said, other countries will penalize us, and so we'll get slammed with a tax, and and then they'll make their change, I think. But I think it's going to be slow progress.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah. We're on the same page. So I do have some optimism, but I think it's in a negative way, where it's going to take longer to get to our targets, whereas we could be doing it faster now and reducing the emissions quicker.
Right. And it's this carrot and stick approach in a way. It's like maybe we have optimism, but only in the penalties that we're going to be facing. Versus in the ideal world, you would hope that it's really the carrot of transitioning to renewables and trade benefits that we can get from that, the household savings we can get, the cleaner air we can breathe. But
exactly.
I think it's a combination that is required.
And do you think deforestation is a big problem in Australia, or are the levels that we're reducing forests, do we need to be alarmed at that?
I am not an expert on deforestation. I would imagine, yeah, I actually do not know. But I can definitely connect you with amazing colleagues who do have opinions on deforestation.
Because it's a big picture. We've got to look at everything to decarbonize and So I've always been curious about the whole picture rather than just little aspects, just mining or other bits as well. So we'll have to do some.
And I think
research.
In climate plans, we do have. There's a mitigation side, which is what we've been talking about, which is all about reducing emissions.
Yeah.
Right. And this other big piece, that in a way, this is the part that COP26 was less successful on, is thinking about adaptation and how do you live with the consequences of climate change, or if you're a small island developing state that is going to be inundated by increasing levels of sea level rise. How do you cope and manage that, and how are you going to have adequate financing from the global community to deal with those impacts? That was a huge gap at COP26, where especially a finance gap, where there hasn't been, the financing goals haven't been reached, and I think that's going to be a huge part of the next COP in a year's time as well, especially because it's being hosted in Egypt, representing the Africa group as well. So I think that's so true, that we do have to start thinking really holistically about climate and its impacts, and how are we going to deal with it in all dimensions.
And does Labor have any response to all of this? Because I just read yesterday that Labor in federal government or Parliament yesterday approved or sided with LNP to frack Beetaloo up in Northern Territory. So I think that's the size of 2 Tasmanias, double the size of Tasmania, the whole area.
That was good news, wasn't it?
Yeah, I wasn't quite happy about that.
No, I wrote to Alice straight away.
Oh, did you?
That's good. Well, I mean, I think Labor's position has always been that they will have something by the election, and they have always kind of said that they wouldn't say anything until after COP26. So I'm eagerly awaiting their climate policies to see what kind of targets they're putting forward for the election. I think that's going to be hugely important, and do hope that this election becomes a climate election in some ways, and that people realize on these issues. I think it's also exciting to see some independent candidates coming out of safe coalition seats on issues like climate change, and I think that's definitely a good move. And we've already seen how people in Parliament, like the Zali Steggles and the Helen Hayeses, have influenced policy. So I will be eagerly waiting that as well.
Yeah, I think we all are.
We've got some good news for you there, Hannah. We had Mark Kelly, who is basically an independent activist, on this show a few weeks ago. And he was the guy that was basically the stalwart behind the Vote Tony Out campaign that actually got Zali in, if you like. And he's now behind about 50 different independent organizations, electorates around the country. And so he's got some it's quite I'm not sure if you're across it, but I don't want to, in case you already are across it, but he's got like a process, and it's sort of like a machine, i.e. he trains up the independents that the community decides that they want to be there, and he trains them in how to talk politics, how to talk to the parliament, what you need to do, what team, etc. So basically when they get there, they already sort of have a clue of what the whole team is going to do, and it's not just a like poor old Jackie Lambie was basically, just thrown straight into the fire, and she's just had to pull herself out day by day. And she's getting better, there's no doubt. Her speech the other day against One Nation was pretty good, but that's getting off this subject slightly. But anyway, I just let you know there is some good news there on the independent side, and it should be really, really interesting election night next year. One thing I did want to ask Hannah, I mean, as a young person, obviously we're on sort of getting on the other side of, well, I am on the other side of 50, and Wency's going to be there
Pretty
sooner or
close.
later in the next couple of years. Yeah.
No, next couple of months. Thank you.
And shit, no, sorry. But anyway, but we've always, we're always sort of been disposed to thinking that, greenhouse gases, we've been thinking this way for the last probably 10, 15 years or so. But your generation has grown up with this complete disaster that you're seeing that basically the baby boomers made. And it's not entirely their fault because they didn't know. And, but although saying that, you can go back to, I think, 1976 or something when, I think, who is the, it's all about client. It's all about climate. Is it Tim something? I can't remember his name.
What about climate?
He's quite old now, but he's been doing climate for quite a long time. Anyway, I digress. I can't remember. I'll find his name. I'll put it in the show notes afterwards. But very learned guy, and we're talking 1970s. So it's not like this is, it's just taking us by surprise. Oh, whoops, the world's going to collapse because of climate change. So I just wondered with, your generation in particular, do you have many sort of colleagues and friends your age that feel your way? Is there anyone that sort of is more on the capitalist side now that, no, we need to just move forward at all sort of at all costs?
Interesting question. I definitely cannot speak on behalf of my whole generation.
I wouldn't want you to
go off of. I definitely think you're right that it's been such a big part of our worldview. I certainly have many friends who will think twice about personal choices like having kids or change their diet to think about the climate. Or I know people who no longer fly because they'd rather not contribute to global emissions. So I think, my generation really, really takes this stuff seriously and personally. And eco-anxiety is a huge part of that, and mental health has been a big impact of climate change in my generation. And I think that's also part of the reason why youth have become such a powerful voice in this discussion. Greta is an icon now. And I met her in
I was going to ask if you had,
in 2018 when I was at COP24 in Poland, which was when she was just starting out. I had the chance to kind of bump into her, and she was really just gaining momentum at that time. But it was...
What was she, about 16 or so? No, she would have been quite young then, wasn't she? 15 or 16 or something?
She's 18 now, so she would have been, 15, 16.
That's just crazy.
And to see such young people having a platform within these traditionally very hierarchical kinds of settings, I think is also powerful. And like you were saying before, of training up people who don't have a background in politics to get into politics, diversity of thought is so important to any kind of decision making. And I do hope that that's something that continues to gain momentum.
Totally agree with that.
Wentz, did you have anything?
No. I was just agreeing with that. You go on with your question.
No, I was just going to say, the green space is such a now in particular, it's such a huge space. There's so many different roles, there's opportunities, there's jobs, because so many people do obviously want to make the world a better place, and there's so many different things we can do at the moment. To transition as we need to out of fossil fuels and into renewables of all kinds, I see the politicians doing a terrible job selling this to the people that, let's be honest, need to lose their jobs. I mean, if you walked up to someone and just said, "Look, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to lose your job." I mean, obviously, but I still want you to vote for me. It's quite obvious that isn't going to be the case. So, do you sort of have any advice to the politicians on how to sell the ethical message of transition properly, so that we do the right thing by people that have been doing the right thing by us for as many years as they can to supply our power, etc.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think that's such an important question. And it's, to me, the difference is this transition is happening, it's underway, and it's inevitable. So is it better to pretend like they have job security and try to kind of prop this up and not then invest in their reskilling and invest in programs that actually make sure that this transition happens in a really equitable and inclusive way? To me, that's not the right way to do it. I think we have to be honest with the Australian public that this is it's a global transition.
Yeah.
It's happening, and be really committed to making sure that we are investing in those people and making sure that they're part of it and not left behind.
It's no different to when the horse and cart moved to vehicles. All those drivers of the carts, or whatever it was, they lost their jobs and they had to go somewhere else. And so you've got to talk about transition, and you've got to talk about 10, 15, 30 years transition, not just the next election cycle, because that's just too short. And I think that's where governments maybe, not just here, but around the world, hopefully are thinking about, but obviously they're not doing that here.
No, I mean, that's such a good thing about COP26 is it gives you a target, it gives you a time frame. Well, the COPs in general, they give you a time frame of what you need to get done in a certain period of time, to ward off catastrophic climate change. But everything I've heard, and even from an optimistic point of view, they said the best we could hope for was 1.8, and that's still not good enough. So I'd imagine from your side in particular, Hannah, that must be incredibly frustrating, even if you're doing everything you possibly think of.
Yeah, and I think for me, so my parents live in Cairns, and I've been able to scuba dive on the Great Barrier Reef, and of course they work in tourism, so the reef is a huge part of their life and their business. And I really think that Australia needs to be mobilizing on 1.5, because at 1.5 degrees, that's when we have a reef. At 2 degrees, we, according to the global scientists, will not have a Great Barrier Reef, right? And I just think that it's just unconceivable to think that that's something we're going to be okay with losing.
Barrier Reef is a wonder of the world. It's actually one of the 7 wonders of the world, the Barrier Reef, basically. And we're just And
I mean, the economic side of it is also impressive. The ecosystems, it attracts tourists from across the world. It is the most beautiful place I have ever seen in the world, and I'm in awe of it. And I think that also is part of why I feel really motivated to try to push the world towards that 1.5 degrees.
Yeah, I love your enthusiasm, and I hope that spreads to other people around you, beyond people listening to the show, because I need that optimism, because I want future for my kids, Keely's kids, your generation, and everyone else. So so I hope it goes well for everyone.
Thanks for saying that. Yeah.
No, you go.
Go for it.
Okay. I was just going to say, just before we went on air, you were talking about you're a bit of a nerd. You like coding and stuff like that. What's the type of stuff what do you do in your day-to-day life that uses those skills and like? how'd you
So-
get into it and stuff like that? Yeah.
So we are moving into the summer, and something I'm really excited to be doing with the Australia Institute is looking at satellite and kind of gridded information about our heat projections, and then translating that into electorate level information, which shows how many days over 35 degrees or 40 degrees you're going to have in different electorates across Australia. And I just won a grant with another organization called Sweltering Cities to do a bunch of this work in Western Sydney, which is highly impacted by urban heat. So I get to combine my love of geospatial data and translating that into maps and information that people can understand with community involvement in Western Sydney, and hopefully some election focused work as well, briefing candidates that are running in Western Sydney around the importance of mitigating urban heat, and of course climate change is a huge part of that.
For sure.
Will you need to do or are you doing a thesis on that, on your findings? Would you have a public report or?
Absolutely, yes. My goal, very optimistically right now, is to, within the next 3 weeks before I go on my Christmas break, to have a first cut at a report that's looking specifically at Western Sydney and heat. It's a part of a much larger project at the Australia Institute called Heat Watch. Which existed before I came, but now I get to do all of the fun data analysis side of it. So it's an ongoing project, and I think a really useful way to think about how we have these different trajectories that we can go on. One is a high emission scenario where we have, a couple months maybe of days over 35 degrees, but one is a low emission scenario, and that is scientifically still possible. It's politically difficult, but there is that future and there is that option. And I think it is powerful when you map that and say, this is how many fewer days of extreme heat you can have if we make the right policy decisions.
And that also comes down to urban design and development as well.
Absolutely. Things about like green spaces in cities. And a lot of this is also intersecting with low income areas tend to have higher urban heat. Research coming out of the US is showing that places where there's more racial diversity, more Black communities have worse urban heat. So the ones at the front lines, this is also a big justice issue. And I think young people are really starting to think about and mobilize around the intersections of climate impacts and identities and class. And I think that's a really, really rich and important space within the research right now.
Awesome.
Excellent. Well, only one more question from me. It's been absolutely fantastic having you on tonight, Hannah. And just a couple of things before we go. One is you're more than welcome to leave any of the links on Heat Watch, your report going forwards, etc. with us. You've got our email address, so feel free to drop us that, and then we can put it into our links and into the podcast links going forward. And the other thing I was going to ask is, you said you've lived in quite a few places. Now, obviously, that accent is either American or Canadian, and I'm not going to go on which one because I'm not sure. But what is it, American?
It's neither, actually. I grew up in Japan until I was 18.
I should have picked that. I'm sorry.
This is right. Isn't it obvious? And then I lived in the Emirates for 5 years. I also did 2 years in New Zealand at boarding school. But this is the Disney Channel influenced accent that I picked up because all of the English TV that I had in Japan came from the US mostly.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. Scandinavians are the same. I did some backpacking with a few Scandinavians years ago, and I couldn't believe. I didn't realize they were Scandinavian until about 2 days when they started just speaking in their home language, because they sounded so American. It was just exactly the same thing. So
yeah.
Wency, did you have anything to finish off with, Hannah?
No, we've answered all my questions that I had, even the carbon border adjustment mechanism, which I was really keen to know what it was all about, but you
Well,
talked about
I will
it
send
earlier.
you many links. I have a report out on carbon border adjustments and an explainer video, and the Australian Institute just has so many resources. So I look forward to sharing that with
Yeah,
everyone.
absolutely.
For
And we'll keep in touch as well. Have a fantastic Christmas, Hannah, and thank you so much. And it'd be lovely to talk to you again, maybe in the new year if you'd like to.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thanks for your time.
Bye.
Been a pleasure. Thank you.
Bye.
See you.
Well, you've had your head spinning a few times in the last few weeks. Is it stopped spinning yet? Is it still going around?
No, it's still spinning. It's it's almost like is it Carrie from the horror movie, just spinning around? Is that the movie? I don't know what the movie was. That horror movie with
this.
Yes. So yeah, that was fascinating. Loved it. Loved talking to Hannah.
Oh yes, absolutely. I 100% agree. It was absolutely brilliant. She's a very, very bright cookie, that one. And
I think she's made my future a bit more optimistic, because she's still confident that things will happen, where I haven't had those same thoughts. But the fact that young people are thinking that makes me, start thinking the same.
Yeah, look, I understand exactly what you're saying. I mean, I understand that you get a bit pessimistic about things, especially when you hear about things from our, well, I don't know if you can call him a leader, but the person that's meant to be the Prime Minister of this country. But I don't know if there's too much leading going on.
No.
We've just bear with me. I'm just trying to add sound again. I'm having lots of fun tonight.
Exactly technical issues today. It must be the weather.
I don't know. It's very, very annoying. But I've got a feeling if I play something, you won't hear it, which isn't very much good at all.
No,
because
we're about to find out.
Well, we are indeed. But we are indeed just about to go into GOTGS. You didn't hear that, did you?
I did.
You heard that? Oh,
I did that.
Excellent.
I did.
Well, at least I know that works. So
we've only been doing this for about 50 odd episodes.
A year or something? I don't know. I think so.
Can you never get off the grass, please?
Sure. Let's just move back from there.
Still one of my favourite clips.
Hey guys, I've just reseated that.
Please, off the thing.
Sorry, mate.
All good. That's all good. Thanks.
It's hard to believe that person runs this country.
I swear I should have that
off the thing. Seriously.
I should have that as my ringtone for you whenever you call.
You should absolutely.
That is hilarious. I still laugh at that sting every time we play it. It's just so funny. Never gets old.
No, it does not. And talk about not getting old. No, that's a terrible segue. What was it you wanted to talk about?
I am going to try to talk about the religious discrimination bill that's gone to Parliament over the last week or so, I think, in the current sitting. So this is where the government is trying. What's that? Yes.
Yes.
So this is the bill where the government is trying to make things equal, I guess, for religious, on religious grounds, that you can't be discriminated against if you believe evil. Yeah, well, it can be. What were some of the notes? So it's gone to Parliament last week. I can't remember if they voted for it. But there was intense debate about it during the discussion of the bill. There were contentious elements in there, things like the Israel Folau clause, where a so-called Israel Folau clause that could give individuals in large companies or organizations legal protection from termination as a result. For anyone, yes.
For anyone that follows this show or is new to the show or doesn't follow rugby, Israel Folau, who would he be?
He was a rugby player who was publicly and even on social media, I believe, pretty much dissing anyone who didn't believe in religion, I think. And I can't remember the exact controversy, but I think it was along the lines of he posted some sort of tweet, I believe, or a Facebook or something like that, that talked about God will smite adulterers, gay people, blah, 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 blah. Yes.
And basically that was a contravening of his contract. And it was all this bullshit Sky News rubbish being on his side about, religious this, religious that. It's basically just giving you the right to slag off whoever you want to slag off publicly.
Based on your religion.
Yeah, that's right. Because it's religion. I'm like, no, sorry, it's not. It's called abuse. So, anyway, keep going. Sorry.
So things like that were removed from the bill after some crossbenchers.
So you're saying that was in the bill at one stage?
That was in the bill, that would be allowed, but that's now been removed. So that's right, things like that will not get passed if the legislation gets passed. Yeah, exactly. What else? Some faith leaders wanted extra protection for LGBTQ plus communities as well. I also read during the week that there are some employment contracts by religious schools where it says that you cannot work for us if you do not practice what's in the Bible. So if you're gay or are married in a same-sex marriage, things like that, you cannot be employed. So I'm curious to know whether that will have protection under this bill.
Do you know what I've heard about this bill? I've heard that, I don't know if you're aware, but apparently there is only 10 days of Parliament until the next election.
Yes. This week's days. One of them.
Yep. And 3 of those days are in the Senate. And Bridget Archer is probably going to cross the floor again, I imagine.
That's right, yep.
For the ICAC bill, because she's seconding Helen Haynes's independent Helen Haynes, who's an absolute gun. Well, I'd love to get on this program. She is an absolute gun, fantastic speaker person and representative of her electorate. And she's been trying to put up an ICAC bill for ages. And now Bridget Archer has seconded that bill. And as you know, she basically crossed the floor on it and said, no, I'm not voting for your religious thing until this ICAC. And the ICAC's not going to happen because, as you know, ScoMo doesn't want it to. So, so I don't even think this bill's going to get up this year.
I don't think so either.
I think they'll try to do it next year. But look, it'll be interesting. I mean,
it will be
10 days. It's basically just going to go bang, bang, bang straight into an election.
Yeah, especially when they don't really cover much during those days. They just bicker and call each other names, and they don't really do anything productive, do they?
But the thing is, it's not much the opposition can do with 10 days.
No.
I mean, I don't understand how the government gets away with it. I mean, I don't understand how they get to only have 10 sitting days. I mean, I don't know what the laws are. I'm going to have to look them up because I just can't believe they're allowed to work that little. I mean, what else are they going to be doing? Are they back in there? I assume, I don't know, but I assume they're back in their electorates trying to suck up to their constituents.
Yeah. It's election time. I better start putting my face around the electorate
Yeah.
so you can vote for me, which is what happens every election cycle. Yeah, but with this new Omicron variant, if it causes issues with border closures, it'll be interesting for electioneering next year and see if they can get into states like Queensland or WA without quarantining. That's going to be fun.
Yeah, it is going to be fun. You are definitely right about that. But it's interesting you say that because the Omicron, such a good note. The Omicron variant. It's not COVID, so we don't talk too much COVID. But it's interesting because there's quite a few different views. And Norman Swan's view, well, he doesn't really have a view. He's trying to speak from what he's heard, knows, and researched, and the information that he's got. But it is that, not that this is a storm in a teacup, but it may be more transmissible, but it also may be not as bad as Delta.
Yeah, that's what I keep hearing. So without dwelling too much on COVID today, but yeah, I think I'm not worried about it at the moment.
No, I saw a bit of Caney tonight. You know, our friend Russell Kane.
Yep.
And he was doing his Nana as usual because he doesn't want to stay inside the house anymore, etc., etc. You know, he's up to his normal sort of antics of swearing and being funny.
Yeah.
But so anyway, you're right though. It'll be interesting what happens there to whether they can tour the country or whatever the situation is. That is very, very true. Now, what I wanted to talk about is this, because this is pretty powerful stuff.
You're vaccinated because you're required to, in order to keep your job, you've been forced to get vaccinated. That's not right, and that's not being truthful at all. That is not correct. If you want to work with vulnerable people, you need to do a police check. If you want to work with kids, you do have to have a working with children check. That is the way it is, and we do that to keep people safe. How about that? We put others before ourselves. You can decide not to choose those checks. No one's forcing you. But if you don't do them, you can't work where you want to work. It's as simple as that. That is the way it is. If you want to work as a cabbie, you need a licence to drive a cab. People without licences are not being discriminated against. If you want to work in aged care, you need to have a flu vaccine. And that law has been in place before COVID-19 was even a twinkle in a Chinese bat's eye, for goodness sake. That's the way it is. You have a right to choose. You don't have a right to put vulnerable people's lives at risk. You don't have that right. And so you shouldn't have that right.
I think that's so worth listening to. I mean, that's just been all over the internet, and it's one of the best. Well, probably maybe only. I'm not sure, but no, I think she's done a few. But this one in particular hit the note really, really well. It was, I'm not sure if you know, but it was against One Nation and the 5 senators from LNP, not senators. It would be half smart enough to be a senator. 5 members of the LNP that crossed the floor on One Nation's side when they are trying to propose a bill to stop mandating the COVID-19 vaccine in workplaces, et cetera. But what they're actually trying to do is override the states. So they're trying to pass a bill that's getting the government, Parliament, to override the states' laws on mandating the vaccines.
Wow.
And that's just Jackie going, look, I don't give a shit what you want to do in your time and how you want to make your choice, but your choice is to do it affect people, and if you make that choice, well, that's your consequence.
Yeah, exactly.
I
She has a way of saying things, but she, like you said, she hit the nail on the head with all those examples. If you want to work with children, you need a blue card or whatever card it is in each state, and all those other examples. It's like no one ever argues about that. Where's the protests against that?
Yeah.
That doesn't happen. But because it's COVID,
well, it's just they feel that they have got a leg to stand on, i.e., from an election point of view. They feel that they can get people on their side because you've got, up your way, you've got Nutjob, big fat Nutjob, who runs around.
Christensen?
Well, that's
Palmer.
one of them. Yes, that's
Palmer.
the other one. Yeah. There's a few of them up there. Just casting misinformation all the time. And the thing that drives me absolutely insane with Palmer in particular is he's a prick. He has lied to his people so many times. He's lied to his workers. He must lie to his wife if he's got one. I don't know what the situation is, but he has
parents,
lied.
I'm sure.
Oh, look, he's just lied so many times, and the misinformation, and he did this last election. So when Hannah was talking about make this a climate election, I 100% agree with her. But the problem was 2019 was the climate election.
Yeah.
And because they lied about it, they lied all about it. ScoMo went, you're going to lose your weekend. And then Michaela Cash came out and sort of came out, where's the weekend? Going to lose it, and all that. Oh, God.
The electric ute. Fucking hell. Whoops.
God.
Did I just say that word?
Oh, I cannot. Oh, I can't.
Yeah.
But anyway. So it was an election on the climate, and I totally agree with Hannah. This one definitely needs to be. But I mean, you've probably seen the polls. They're looking good for Labor. I mean, the only reason I say that is a good thing is because that if we can get 4 or 5 independents in with Labor and the Greens and the ones that are there, at least you'll have a parliament that can actually discuss things.
Yeah, exactly. I think we need more minority governments for sure.
Definitely.
It's the only way to get things done. And I think, like you said, last election was climate change. This one hopefully will be. I think the big difference are the independents in those electorates. We've got more of them. There's a bigger campaign. There's better awareness amongst the community in the areas where it matters to the LNP. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, there is hope that there'll be something positive next year for us all.
Yeah, look, I totally agree with you. There definitely is hope. There's no doubt about that. I mean, especially when you look at the polls, and I mean, gee whiz, how many? I'm probably in a little bit of an echo chamber on Twitter, but gee whiz, the amount of people that really, really hate ScoMo is increasing daily. I mean, there's Twitter channels that just say Australians that hate Morrison. I mean, mind you, there's Victorians that hate Dan and all the rest of it. That doesn't really mean much. But I think the overarching sort of opinions seem to be decreasing, and that's for no other reason of what people are seeing is happening in front of them.
The constant lies.
Yeah. I mean, there's only so many times you go, oh, okay. What does drive me insane, and it absolutely does, is when they go, oh, they're all the same. They're all the same. They all just lie. All of them lie. Like, some may tell lies that aren't great. Some tell massive ones that destroy your life. So you need to work out which one you want to work with.
Yes. Get invested. Look at your people, your local members or your candidates. Yeah, do some research. Don't just go by what people say in social media, because a lot of it's just bullshit.
It is absolute bullshit. And most things that are on Sky After Dark are complete bullshit. So if you're listening to that, you might well get off our podcast right now.
Yeah.
But you're not going to learn much because you only get facts here. So
yeah, exactly.
We don't do conspiracies here.
Yeah.
But listen to this.
It's very simple. Stop what you're doing.
Well, you could stop what you were doing, but that would mean you'd be stopped listening to us. So
yes,
that's not exactly sort of what we're looking at there.
No. Let's see if we can play the full thing.
Yes, it would be good. It's just been a little bit of a.
Let's just add it to the list of all the shit things that have gone wrong tonight.
There we go. That's
It's very simple. Stop what you're doing and listen to this.
Yes, much better. Much better. Yes, so this is Wency's segment, so I will shut up, which most people will be very happy about.
I am so excited about this one.
Good. I'm going to leave it to you. Go.
I'm excited and proud because way back on 3rd of June, episode 32, which will be in the show notes.
We discovered him. Is that what you're saying? We discovered him.
Yes, that's what I'm going to claim because he wasn't a name back then.
Yes, so, I couldn't pronounce him.
Can you say it again?
Genital.
No, don't say that. Genesis Owusu.
It's a pretty cool name. I've got to give you that.
It is.
I mean,
yes.
I'm not the biggest fan of his music, but yeah, it's a pretty cool name. That's a pretty
cool name. It just rolls off the tongue, really.
Yeah.
So back on 3rd of June, I reviewed his album and gave it, I think, 4, maybe even 5 Splurt stars for it, and really happy.
Yes, you're a big fan. You really like it.
Yeah, big fan. And ever since I heard a couple of weeks ago that he was nominated for ARIAs, I've been going back to listen to his music and really enjoying it again. Just to remind people, he was born in Ghana, came to Australia in 2000 when he was only 2 years old, surrounded by music. He had a mother who sang in a choir back in Ghana. His dad listened to all sorts of music. But his brother and him got into music, and his brother, I guess, led him into being a musician and performer, became an Unearth finalist in 2015, and then he started getting bigger and bigger, and now he's got some ARIA awards. So the awards that he was nominated for were Album of the Year, Best Independent Album of the Year. Yep.
He was a debut artist, wasn't he?
Yeah, that was his first album. Yeah. So
he got Album of the Year. That's nuts.
It is, isn't it?
That's absolutely crazy.
Best Independent Release, Best Hip Hop Release, and Best Cover Art. So all of those he won. So I think he was nominated for 2 others, but yeah, he won 4 out of 6 from memory.
That's crazy. Debut album. Has any other album done that?
Not that I know of. Not that I'm an ARIA's historian or anything, but
aficionado.
I'm sure aficionado. I'm sure there have been others like Powderfinger. I'm sure they would have been.
Yeah, maybe
they would have done good stuff like that. Yeah.
Men at Work, maybe.
Possibly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if you've got access to our music, where the Act of Country is. There's a little MP3 grab that I wanted you to play, seeing as you've got that working today. Are you able to play that?
Well, is it in the cloud?
Yep.
Okay.
I know I sprung this late on you, but
yeah, you did slightly, but I'm up to the task.
Awesome. You'll see there. It's called Genesis Owusu. It's only a short grab.
Whereabouts is it?
Where the Act of Country is.
Okay. Is that in? Oh, right. Okay, that's in music, isn't it?
Yeah.
T&B recordings.
Yep. Perfect.
Genesis Owusu. Yep. Got it.
So if you can play that.
Yeah, she's a coming.
Awesome.
Let's go.
She's a coming.
Yeah.
You look incredible, bro.
Thank you. You too.
So happy to be here. What a night we have had so far. I'd almost forgotten how incredibly special it is to see live performances in the
This is
flesh.
from the ARIA Awards.
Such a great feeling to be here live, celebrating Australian artists who hold their own here and also around the world.
Without a question, Australian music makes waves. And tonight, it's an honour to be here with Rule, awarding the best of the best with the ARIA of Album of the Year award.
Yeah, I mean, creating an album from scratch is a crazy achievement. And I'm actually working on my first one right now, so I can tell you firsthand that it is no mean feat. So major respect to the nominees.
Here are the nominees for 2021.
Amy Shah for Cry Forever.
Love that girl. She's awesome.
Local Queenslander.
Midnight collaborators for the Makarata project.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
I
remember
love
that.
the Makarata project. That's
We
brilliant.
will always love you. Tones and I for Welcome to the Madhouse.
And the ARIA goes to
Genesis Owusu is smiling with no teeth.
Up against big names there.
Did they play anything of Smiling No Teeth?
Yeah, he did a couple of songs, I think, at the ARIAs.
Making him the most awarded artist of
yeah.
2021.
He's about to give his acceptance speech. So they were only short because they were really short for the ARIAs.
Insane. Once again, thank you so much to my team at Ourness. Geniuses. Marty Court, genius. Liv Berg, genius. Yo, I used to get side-eyed a lot when I was younger for like the way I dressed and the things I did, like all of this basically. But all the people I loved and respected always stood firm, immovable, unshakable, because we knew the power in who we were and what we created. Sugar.
He's so overwhelmed.
Lots of words, honestly. This means so much to me. For all those people, Goon Club worldwide, eccentrics, black people, know that it's not up to us to change for people, but it's up to people to catch up and see what they've been missing out on. I love you all. Thank you so much. Peace.
Basically, that's like boom, mic drop.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's why I wanted to include it because it was just awesome.
That was really, really good. Really, really
Yeah.
good. Well,
So-
we won't go too much further on Genesis, apart from the fact that you put his album access in the show notes. I assume.
Yep, from Spotify and all those other places. Please make sure you play it in order on Spotify because he does tell the story. So don't shuffle the album.
Well, that's another story in itself, but
Yeah,
we
it
won't
is.
go there now. We don't have enough time.
No.
But what I was going to say was that you could probably put the link to if there's any other ARIA stuff on Genesis, maybe put that in the show notes as well.
I'll definitely put that.
We'll have all the Hannah Melville-Rea links when she sends those to us. We'll put those in. Next week it will just be just Wednesday and us because in a couple of weeks' time we have a Christmas show coming up and we need to prep for that because it's going to be a cracker.
Yes.
We're going to have
looking forward to that.
Yes, it's going to be fun. So we're going to have some quizzes. Wednesday's going to do a bit of work on some Christmas quizzes. I'm going to find some Christmas sounds and Christmas things that make things a bit of fun. We're going to have Ash on. We've had Ash on before. Ash Visa Main. He's fantastic. He started gigging again, which is awesome.
We'll hear all about that.
Yes, it's going to be fantastic. And he'll get to plug his show that's in February. And as he said, he's going to be at the Comedy Festival next year. So it's all happening. 14th of
December.
14th of December at around about 8 this year 2021 around about 8 p.m. ish. So yeah, join us. It'll be good.
Yes, looking forward to it.
Yes, absolutely. Just before we go, Wency, my friend, anything you want to say? Anyone else? Anything you want to plug?
Listen, no, I don't need any plugs in my scalp at the moment. So I'm all good. No, just don't forget to catch us on our socials as usual, and tell all your friends about our podcast because, yeah, I think we're great.
Yes, we're definitely getting better, no doubt about it. And
Yes.
Just today we've had Richie Merzian follow us as well, who is a esteemed colleague in the climate change space, and it's fantastic he started following us. We started following him as well. It's even good.
Yep.
So brilliant.
And he's
We
from
will
the
see you next
Australian
week. We
Institute.
look forward to it. Thanks for joining. This has been a Kegstar.
And Wency.
Later.
Bye.